They're noisy, distinctive and uniquely West Australian, but they're also living on borrowed time. Some experts fear the Carnaby's cockatoo could be extinct within 50 years. Clearing and logging have largely destroyed areas of their native habitat, and now one of their last havens in the Gnangara pines is being cleared, and those trees aren't being replanted. As Charlotte Hamlin reports, that's bad news for the cockies.
They're an iconic, beautiful bird. They're found nowhere else in the world except here in the southwest of WA. They're known as the rainbird because they actually migrate out to the coastal areas when they're breeding areas inland, and they follow the patterns of the rainfall.
Thousands of endangered Carnaby's cockatoos call these pine plantations north of Perth home. For researchers, it's the perfect spot to come and study the birds.
So behind us now you can hear the remnants of a flock of probably 200 plus birds, and they're just coming into the nighttime roost. So during the non-breeding season, which for these birds runs from about January to June, we get anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 birds associated with the Gnangara pine plantation system.
While it's not a natural habitat, the Gnangara pine plantation has provided a home and food source for the Carnaby's cockatoo since the 1940s.
This is a pine cone. So in this little piece here is probably about over 150 seeds, and it takes them about 10 minutes to turn this into this puddle of pine cones here. And if they eat about 11 of these, that's their daily intake. So it's an incredibly energy-rich resource. By about April, May, these birds will have removed pretty much every pine cone in this plantation system. So it's just phenomenal. You can go anywhere in the system and you won't see any cones up on the trees.
But the cockatoo population is in rapid decline. Land clearing in other parts of the state meant the pine plantations had become a reliable haven for the birds. But now the Gnangara, Pinjar and Yanchep plantations are being cleared at a rate of over 1,000 hectares a year, and the trees aren't being replaced. Since 2010, Carnaby's cockatoo numbers here have decreased by an alarming 37%. Murdoch University professor Hugh Finn and Catherine Howard from environmental organisation WWF are concerned about the bird's future.
We're still clearing, on average, about 850 hectares of native vegetation in the Perth metropolitan region every year. So that's 1,000 hectares of pines being harvested a year, 850 hectares of native vegetation being cleared every year. You don't have to be a mathematician to figure out what kind of an impact that's going to have on an already threatened species.
The pine plantations provide a bit of a catch-22. While the pine trees serve as a food source and a place for the cockatoos to roost, they're detrimental to the Gnangara Mound, Perth's primary source of drinking water that lies beneath the plantations. Environmental groups recognise that finding a solution that benefits both the environment, the birds and the water source isn't simple. But a lack of action in recent years has the researchers worried.
Something needs to be put back in its place. We can't just have 23,000 hectares of essentially a kind of a treeless wasteland. And the decisions about what's going to happen to this land have been delayed for too long already.
WWF says by so far failing to announce what will become of the plantation land, the state government is failing in its responsibility to conserve an endemic species threatened by habitat destruction. In 2009, the state government released a draft Gnangara sustainability strategy. One of its key recommendations was to replace the harvested pines with patches of natural habitat that would help to maintain the biodiversity of the area, a simple and quick fix that would limit the impact on the cockatoos. But 3.5 years on, that hasn't happened. The government now says it plans to make decisions around the fate of the Gnangara pine plantation land as part of its broader strategic assessment for the Perth and Peel region.
We're waiting for the strategic assessment being undertaken with the Commonwealth, whose responsibility is under the Environmental Protection Biodiversity Act to also protect the Carnaby's cockatoo. So we're working in unison with the Commonwealth, and I'm sure by the middle of the year we'll have a good strategy.
Catherine Howard says there's no reason why revegetating the area should be delayed any further, and if the plantations were owned by a commercial entity, this sort of inaction wouldn't fly.
There should not be one law for a state government and one law for everyone else. I mean, every development company, every mining company has to meet their legal obligations under the EPBC Act. We'd like to see a state government treated in exactly the same way.
For the sake of this rare bird, conservationists hope decisions are made sooner rather than later.
There is no reason why that shouldn't be happening right now. This is a species that is only found here in southwest WA and nowhere else in the world, so if we aren't looking after it, no one else will.